Zawadi had built her life around love and hard work. Every morning in Kisongo, Tanzania, she woke before sunrise, preparing tea and mandatsi before heading to the small shop she ran in the market. She worked long hours, but she never complained. All of it was for her 8-year-old son, Baraka, her pride, her joy, her reason for every sacrifice. Baraka was a gentle, curious boy with a shy smile that could light up her whole day. Family was everything to Zawadi, and she was grateful to have her younger sister Nia living nearby. They weren't just sisters, they were each other's safe place. Sundays were sacred, big pots of pulao cooking, laughter spilling out into the yard, the smell of cardamom and roasted meat in the air. They'd sit under the shade of the mango tree, children running barefoot in the grass, while the women traded stories and teased one another. Zawadi often caught herself thinking how lucky Baraka was to grow up surrounded by this warmth. Photos of their gatherings filled Zawadi's phone, Nia hugging Baraka, the cousins grinning with juice-stained lips, the whole family squeezed into one frame. On random days, they would send each other "I love you" messages in the family WhatsApp group. It was the kind of closeness people dream about, the kind that made outsiders smile. To Zawadi, this was unshakable. She trusted it completely, never imagining that beneath the laughter and shared meals, there could be something else, something waiting to break her heart. It started so small that Zawadi barely noticed it. Little comments from Nia that seemed harmless at first. One afternoon, while the cousins were playing in the yard, Nia watched Baraka carefully and said, "He still talks so slowly for his age, doesn't he?" She laughed lightly, like it was just an observation, but something about the way she said it stayed in Zawadi's mind. Still, she told herself it was nothing, just a sister being honest. Another time, Baraka came back from school wearing his neatly washed uniform, the one Zawadi had mended at the elbows. Nia looked him up and down and smiled in that way that wasn't really a smile. "My kids would never be caught in patched clothes," she said, half laughing. "But I guess you do what you can." Zawadi had laughed too, though it was forced. In her heart, she told herself, this is how sisters talk, it's not serious. The small remarks kept coming. At family gatherings, Nia would compare how quickly her children finished their homework, how neatly they wrote, how clearly they spoke. Sometimes she would speak directly to Baraka. "Why are you so shy? Say it properly." Everyone around would chuckle, and Zawadi would smile along, not wanting to create tension. It wasn't that Nia was openly cruel. In front of others, she still hugged Baraka, still posed for photos with him. She still sent the sweet, "I love you" messages in the family group chat. That's why Zawadi never questioned her sister's heart. She believed love was the foundation of everything between them. Whenever Zawadi's friends hinted that Nia might be a little too critical, Zawadi would quickly defend her. "That's just how she is," she'd say with a shrug. "She teases, but she loves him." In Zawadi's mind, siblings sometimes said things they didn't mean, and if she started picking apart every word, it would just create unnecessary problems. What Zawadi didn't see, or maybe didn't want to see, was the way Nia's eyes lingered on Baraka whenever he struggled to pronounce a word, or how she whispered to her friends when Zawadi wasn't paying attention. She didn't notice the small smirks, the glances that weren't as warm as they used to be. Life moved on, the teasing blending into the rhythm of their days, like background noise she no longer heard. Zawadi kept telling herself that love was stronger than any little crack, and that family was meant to hold each other up, not tear each other down. She had no reason to believe otherwise. But cracks, no matter how small, don't stay small forever. And the day would come when Zawadi would see those cracks for what they really were. Not jokes, not sisterly teasing, but something much darker hiding underneath. It was a quiet Thursday evening. Zawadi had just closed her shop and was sitting on the edge of her bed, tired but happy to be home with Baraka. He was in the living room, humming to himself while drawing in his exercise book. Her phone buzzed. A WhatsApp notification from Nia. It was a short video, maybe 30 seconds long. The caption read nothing, just the clip. Zawadi assumed it was something funny, maybe the kids playing, so she tapped to play it. What she saw didn't make sense at first. Nia was sitting in what looked like her friend's living room. Around her were two women Zawadi recognized from church. They were all laughing, but not the warm, family laughter she knew. This was sharp, cruel laughter. Then Zawadi heard it. Nia, her own sister, was speaking in a strange, exaggerated tone. It took a moment for Zawadi to realize she was imitating Baraka's slow way of speaking. "Oh, Mama, can I have water?" Nia stuttered, dragging the words out while the women burst into giggles. Another woman chimed in. "He's so slow. 8 years old and still talks like that." Nia nodded, still laughing. "Sometimes I think he's just useless. Always behind." Zawadi froze. Her breath caught in her chest. The video wasn't taken secretly. They knew they were being recorded. Every word was clear. Every mocking tone cut through her like a knife. She could hear the clinking of teacups, the shuffle of feet, the sound of Nia's voice, the same voice that told Zawadi, "I love you," almost every day, now dripping with contempt for her son. Her hands began to shake. She replayed it, hoping she had misheard, that somehow it was taken out of context. But there was no other way to hear it. The cruel imitation. The words slow. Useless. The laughter. She played it again and again, each time feeling like the air around her was heavier. From the other room, Baraka called out, "Mama, what are you watching?" Zawadi's voice caught. "Nothing, my boy," she said quickly, forcing her voice steady. She didn't want him to hear. Not now. Maybe not ever. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her ears. She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the reply button, but no words came. Her sister, the person she trusted most, had sent this. Maybe by mistake, maybe as a warning, maybe not even caring. Zawadi locked her phone and sat still for a long time, the sound of their laughter echoing in her head. Something had broken in her, and she knew, deep down, nothing would ever feel the same again. The next morning, Zawadi woke with the same heavy feeling in her chest. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Nia's face in that video, laughing like she had never cared for Baraka at all. By sunrise, Zawadi knew she couldn't keep it inside. She needed to hear her sister explain. She needed to believe there was some reason, some misunderstanding that could make this hurt less. She called Nia and asked her to meet at a quiet cafe in town. No children, no friends, no distractions. When Nia walked in, she smiled like nothing was wrong. Zawadi didn't smile back. She pulled out her phone, pressed play, and slid it across the table. Nia glanced at the screen, then leaned back in her chair. "Oh, that," Nia said, raising her eyebrows. "You're upset about that?" Zawadi's voice trembled. "You were mocking my son, Nia. You called him slow. You called him useless. How could you?" Nia gave a small laugh, shaking her head. "Oh, come on. It was a joke. We were just playing around. You're too sensitive, Zawadi. You always take things so seriously." Zawadi felt the words hit like stone. "A joke? That's your nephew. He looks up to you. You really need to relax," Nia replied, sipping her tea as if the conversation bored her. "Everyone laughs at things like this sometime. You can't expect people to tiptoe around just because your boy is a little behind." The casual cruelty in her voice made Zawadi's stomach turn. She had come expecting at least a hint of guilt, maybe even tears. But there was nothing, no shame, no apology. Just a shrug, a smirk, and the message that Zawadi's pain didn't matter. Zawadi stared at her sister, searching for the person she thought she knew. She remembered the Sundays under the mango tree, the "I love you" messages, the warm hug. Now those memories felt like a lie. The woman sitting across from her wasn't the sister who held Baraka as a baby. This was someone else, someone who could laugh about a child's struggles and feel no remorse. Something inside Zawadi shifted. The hurt that had been sitting like a weight in her chest started to burn. Her sadness began turning into something sharper, heavier, anger. Deep, steady anger. She pushed her chair back and stood up. "You may think this is funny," she said quietly, "but one day you'll see what it really is." She didn't wait for a reply. She left the cafe without looking back, her hands still trembling, but her steps firm. On the way home, she knew one thing for sure. She would never forget that moment, and she would never see her sister the same way again. The bond was broken, and there was no stitching it back. For days, Zawadi carried the weight in silence. She went to work, cooked meals, helped Baraka with homework, all while pretending everything was normal. Inside, she was a storm. Her mind kept going back to the cafe, to Nia's face when she brushed it all off like nothing. Part of her wanted to just let it go. She told herself, it's not worth the drama. We're family. Better to keep the peace. But the video wouldn't leave her mind. Neither would the memory of Nia's words. And then another memory surfaced, one she had tried to bury. It was a rainy afternoon at Baraka's school. She had come early to pick him up and found him sitting alone on the steps. His eyes were red, his voice quiet. "They were laughing at me, Mama," he had whispered. "They said I talk like a baby." She had hugged him tight and promised, "Don't listen to them. People can be unkind, but you're perfect the way you are." That same tearful face flashed in her mind now, and the thought hit her like a blow. The people laughing at him this time weren't strangers. It was his own family. The people meant to protect him. Zawadi lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. She thought about the cost of speaking up, the fights, the whispers in the neighborhood, the possible shame for the whole family. But she also thought about Baraka and what message her silence would send. If she kept quiet, wasn't she telling him that his pain didn't matter? That it was okay for people to mock him as long as they were family? Her anger began to steady into resolve. She realized that protecting him didn't mean hiding the truth. It meant standing up for him, even when it was hard, even when it meant breaking ties. By morning, her mind was made up. She wasn't going to scream at Nia again. She wasn't going to beg for an apology that would never come. She was going to do something Nia couldn't laugh off. Something that would show the world exactly what had been done. She unlocked her phone and opened the video. Her finger hovered over the share button. For a moment, she hesitated, thinking of all the years of sisterhood, the family lunches, the hugs. But then she thought of Baraka's small voice on that rainy day, his head on her shoulder, the quiet pain he carried. Her chest tightened, but her decision was clear. The world would know. They would hear the words, see the faces, and understand the cruelty that had been hidden behind smiles. She pressed save. She would not protect the people who had hurt her son. Not anymore. That Sunday morning, Zawadi sat at the small kitchen table with a cup of chai that had long gone cold. The video was open on her phone again, its thumbnail frozen on Nia's laughing face. Her heart was pounding, but her mind was calm in a way it hadn't been for days. This was it. No more hesitation. No more protecting people who didn't protect her child. She opened her Facebook account first, then Instagram. She knew this wasn't something to hide in a private message or a small group chat. If she was going to speak, she was going to speak where the world could hear. She uploaded the full video. No cuts, no blurring, no softening of the truth. She let every second play exactly as it had happened. The mocking voice, the cruel words, the laughter that still stung her like fresh wounds. Then she began to write. Her fingers shook slightly on the keyboard, but the words came quickly. This is not easy to share, but I believe it's important. This is my son, Baraka, being mocked by people who should have loved and protected him. He is 8 years old, kind, shy, and one of the bravest people I know. For years, he has struggled with a speech delay. Instead of encouraging him, they laughed. They called him slow and useless. It broke my heart then, and it breaks my heart now. Bullying is not always from strangers. Sometimes it's from the ones closest to us. I am sharing this because I refuse to be silent. Every child deserves kindness, patience, and love, especially from their own family. If you are a parent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, please remember, your words can build a child or break them. Choose to build. She read the caption twice, added no names, no direct accusations. She didn't need to. The truth was already in the video. She took a deep breath and pressed post. For a few minutes, nothing happened. She set the phone down, her hands still trembling. She half expected to feel regret, but instead she felt a strange sense of relief, like she had finally let go of something heavy she'd been carrying. Then the notifications started. Likes, shares, comments. At first, just a trickle. Then faster and faster, until her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. People were watching. People were listening. Baraka came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, Mama," he said softly. She smiled at him, pulling him close. "Morning, my boy," she whispered. She didn't tell him about the post yet. That would come later. For now, she just held him tighter, knowing that the truth was finally out in the open, where it belonged. By the next morning, Zawadi's phone was buzzing nonstop. She woke to find hundreds of notifications. Overnight, the video had exploded across social media. People were sharing it not just in Tanzania, but in Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, all over. By the end of the day, it had been viewed over 1 million times. The comments poured in, thousands of them. Strangers wrote messages of love and support for Baraka. Parents shared stories of their own children being mocked or bullied. Some said they cried watching the clip. "This boy is perfect just the way he is," one person wrote. "May he grow up knowing his worth." Others turned their anger toward Nia, calling her out for cruelty, asking how someone could treat family that way. Messages also came from people who had once been in Baraka's shoes. Adults shared how words from family had stayed with them for years, how it had taken a long time to heal. Some thanked Zawadi for speaking up when they had been too scared to do it themselves. It wasn't just about Baraka anymore. It had become a conversation about kindness, respect, and how the people closest to us can sometimes cause the deepest wounds. By midweek, the story had caught the attention of local radio stations and newspapers. A Swahili news site ran the headline, "Mother stands up to family bullying, video sparks debate across Africa." Zawadi's phone rang constantly with reporters asking for interviews. She was nervous, but she agreed to a few, speaking calmly about what had happened and why she decided to share the video. She never mentioned Nia's name, but her message was clear: bullying, no matter where it comes from, is never okay. Soon, schools began reaching out. Teachers invited her to speak to students and parents about the harm words can cause. One headmaster told her, "Your story is opening eyes. It's making people think before they speak." Baraka didn't fully understand how big it had become, but he noticed the small thing. Strangers in the market smiled at him and called him brave. A neighbor dropped by with a bag of sweets, telling him, "We're proud of you." He began to stand a little taller, his shy smile appearing more often. At night, after Baraka went to sleep, Zawadi would sit on her bed scrolling through the messages. She couldn't read them all. There were too many. But every few minutes, she'd come across one that made her eyes well up. It wasn't just about exposing cruelty anymore. Something good was growing out of the pain. The world had seen the truth, and instead of breaking them, it was lifting them higher than Zawadi had ever imagined. For Nia, the storm came fast. Within days of the video going viral, her name began to surface in whispers online. Zawadi had never mentioned her directly, but people connected the dots. The faces in the clip were clear. Neighbors recognized the living room. Old friends recognized her laugh. At first, Nia ignored it, thinking the noise would fade. But it didn't. Her phone was full of unread messages, some from strangers, some from people she knew, all asking if it was really her. She stopped opening social media because every time she did, the video was there, shared by someone new, with hundreds of angry comments underneath. Her friends began to pull away quietly. The women who had laughed with her in the video didn't answer her calls anymore. A few even deleted her from their contacts. At work, her manager called her into the office. "This situation," he said, sliding his phone across the desk with the video paused on her face, "is causing a lot of attention. We can't have this kind of image linked to the company." Nia tried to explain it was just a joke, but the manager's expression stayed cold. "It doesn't look like a joke," he said simply. In the neighborhood, things changed too. Women at the market stopped chatting with her like before. Men she had known for years nodded politely, but didn't linger. She could feel the stares when she walked past. Children, even some from her own street, whispered and giggled when they saw her. The weight of it finally hit her one night when she was sitting alone in her kitchen, phone in hand. She opened WhatsApp and began typing to Zawadi. The first message was short: "Please take down the video." A few minutes later, when there was no reply, she sent another: "You've made your point. People are turning against me. This isn't fair." Then another: "You're ruining my life." Zawadi read the messages but didn't respond right away. When she finally replied hours later, her words were calm but final: "You ruined it yourself. I will not delete the truth." The conversation ended there. Nia stared at the screen, her jaw tight. She had always believed family could keep secrets, that things said behind closed doors stayed there. But now her own laughter, her own words, were echoing in the world for everyone to hear. Weeks passed, but the shadow of the video didn't fade. Even those who didn't mention it outright treated her differently. It wasn't just the loss of friends or the coldness at work. It was the shift in how people saw her. They no longer saw the smiling, friendly Nia. They saw the woman who had mocked her own nephew and laughed while doing it. And no matter what she said now, that image was not going away. Baraka didn't understand all of it at first. He knew something had happened. People were talking more to his mother. Strangers were smiling at him, and the phone kept buzzing. But he didn't know the full story until Zawadi gently told him. She explained that she had shared the video because what happened wasn't right, and because no child should be made to feel small for being different. Instead of shrinking from the attention, Baraka began to stand a little taller. At school, classmates who once teased him now came to sit beside him at lunch. Teachers praised his bravery, telling him they were proud. He still spoke slowly, still sometimes paused to find the right words, but now he didn't lower his head when he did. The fear of being laughed at was fading. One afternoon, Zawadi got a call from a local children's charity. They had seen the video and wanted to meet Baraka. At the meeting, they told him they admired his courage and wanted to offer him a full scholarship to one of the best schools in the region, a place where he would get extra support for his speech and room to grow his talent. Zawadi could hardly speak from gratitude. Baraka just smiled shyly and said, "Thank you. I will do my best." It didn't stop there. The charity also invited him and Zawadi to speak at an event for parents and educators about the impact of kindness. Baraka was nervous at first, but his mother stood beside him as he told the audience about his journey. He spoke slowly, carefully, but with confidence. "People used to laugh at me," he said, looking out at the crowd, "but I learned that I'm not less because of how I speak. I am enough." The audience gave him a standing ovation. More invitations followed: schools, community centers, even a local radio program. Zawadi always let Baraka decide if he wanted to speak, and more often than not, he said yes. Each time, his voice grew steadier, his eyes brighter. He was no longer just the boy in the video. He was becoming a voice for children who had felt the sting of unkind words. At home, life felt lighter. Zawadi watched her son bloom in ways she had once only hoped for. He laughed more. He asked more questions. He even started helping younger kids at school with their reading, encouraging them patiently the way he wished people had encouraged him. What had once been a source of pain had turned into a source of strength. Baraka was not just surviving what happened, he was rising above it. And Zawadi knew this was only the beginning of his story. Years passed, and Baraka grew into a young man with a voice that carried far beyond the room. His words were steady now, full of purpose. He spoke at schools, conferences, and community gatherings, always about kindness, resilience, and the power of standing up for what is right. People listened, not just because of what he said, but because of the calm strength in how he said it. One warm evening, he stood on a small stage in Arusha, telling a packed hall about his journey. The audience hung on every word. In the back row, unnoticed at first, Nia sat quietly. Time had softened her face, but the weight in her eyes was heavy. She listened as Baraka spoke about the moment his life changed, not in anger, but with grace. When the speech ended, the hall erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even wiping away tears. Baraka smiled, humbled, and gave a small bow. Zawadi stood near the side of the stage, her heart swelling with pride. As the noise filled the room, her eyes scanned the crowd, and then she saw her. Nia. Their gazes locked. There were no words, no nods, no smiles. Just a long, unbroken look between two sisters who had once been inseparable. In Zawadi's eyes was a quiet truth. Cruelty fades into shame, but kindness leaves a mark that never disappears. Nia lowered her gaze, and Zawadi turned back to her son, the applause still echoing. Baraka's journey had come full circle, and the boy who was once mocked now stood taller than the pain that had tried to break him. And in that moment, Zawadi knew kindness had won.